Hello again, everyone, and welcome back to Reddit Aliens. I am John, and as always, thank you so much for being here. Dark topic, a little not safe for work. Let's do it. What true crime is so brutal it gives you chills? Please remember to like, share, and subscribe. The murder of James Bulger, an English 2-year-old abducted, tortured, and murdered in 1993 by two 10-year-old boys. I can't get that shit out of my head. Albert Fish killed and ate a small child, then sent a letter to the mother describing the whole experience in detail. I know this is bland, but Ted Bundy, how the hell did he manage to get away with 99% of the murders he committed? For me, it's the essay and attempted murder of Alison Botha. She was essayed, disemboweled, and was decapitated most of the way. She got herself up and roamed for a while before finding help, having to hold her intestines and head in place the whole time. It's not really the crime itself, but it's knowing how hard it must have been to do what she did to survive. The Nigerian death factory. Absolutely horrendous what we humans do to each other for money. Such vile, inhumane scum. Hinterkaifeck murders. Entire family killed in 2022, and still to this day, nobody knows who actually did it. Nobody survived. The chimney was smoking and the stove was on, food was cooked, but nobody was alive. Evidence showed that the younger Kazila had been alive for several hours after the assault. She had torn her hair out in tufts while lying in the straw. Official statement. The Vegas shooting. It's hard to imagine being in a killing field. I wouldn't know where to hide or run. Stuff like that creeps me the F out, because nutbags seem to be everywhere. The Darden family murders, wife and son beaten brutally to death. The wife was pregnant at the time, and the beating was so bad she went into labor during, and the newborn was beaten to death too. The husband was originally the suspect. Then, they found him dead in a field with his genitals mutilated. What's worse is nobody to this day knows who did it. Tommy Lynn Sells confessed to it, but there's a lot of doubts to that claim. So basically, we'll probably never know who it really was. Everything surrounding Jonestown. Once as a kid, I caught a documentary about it on PBS, just straight over the antenna TV at maybe 8 p.m., and it was one of the most graphic things I've ever seen on TV. Not the most brutal I've heard of, but one that affected my parents heavily. In Pennsylvania, 20-ish years ago, a man had his head blown off on live TV. Two bank robbers put an explosive collar on a friend's neck, then made him rob a bank or they'd blow him up. Police catch and begin to arrest him, but he warns police about the bomb. Police wait for a bomb squad or orders on what to do. Reporters show up and start recording. Then the two robbers see their friend on the news and hit the detonator before he gives them away. Yeah, Netflix made a show about this. I think it was Netflix. I watched it. Pretty disturbing, you know. I mean, the plan, diabolical that it was smart enough, but truly psycho woman. They're all awful, but the one most recently on my mind is JJ Vallow and Tylee Ryan. Thankfully, their mother Lori was deemed guilty on all counts. Her husband, Chad Daybell, will go on trial next year. But hearing what they went through, JJ, who was autistic, was suffocated with a bag taped over his head. He had scratch marks on his neck where he tried to free himself. As for Tylee, no one knows how she died, as she was burned and buried in several pieces. When she was finally found, there were only fragments remaining. Daisy's destruction. Don't look it up. Also, let this be a reminder that if you know about this one is only one case that we know of how atrocious people can be. Imagine how many have never seen the light of day. People like this make me think that hell needs to step up their game. Shasta Grown. At the age of 8, her and her 9-year-old brother were kidnapped by Joseph Duncan after he killed her mother, boyfriend's mom, and their older brother. He held them captive for like a month. Her life is a complete mess now. Baby Brianna Lopez. I have a 7-month-old daughter that I would die for, and every time I hear about baby Brianna, it kills me. Her murderous monster of a mother got off easy. I'll never understand the desire to hurt a child, especially when it is your own child. I wish I could go back in time and save Brianna from the torture she endured in her short time on her earth. The Holocaust. Along with other such mass murder and torture of civilians, but we must never forget the atrocities of the past just because they make us uncomfortable. The Chardon Massacre. The perpetrator, Thomas T.J. Lane, showed no remorse and was just a complete asshole in the courtroom during sentencing. He was given 3 life sentences, 1 for each victim, plus 37 years in prison. Murder of Anna Kriegel in Ireland, 2018. That kind of shit never happens here. There's only a few cases like that I've ever heard of, this one being the worst. Still to this day I think about it. Poor girl and her poor family. When I was in high school, I read about a group of Canadian teenagers that broke into a house while the family was on vacation, took the family pet cat, tragically named Princess, and put her in the effing microwave. The news article stated the poor cat screamed for 10 minutes while being cooked alive before she stopped yelling. I'm in my 30s now, and it's still the worst crime I've ever heard of. Whoever those creatures are, the group of teenagers, not the cat, I hope the universe pays them in kind. I've read countless true crime cases over the years, and while many are shocking and disturbing, I'm surprised the hi-fi murders aren't brought up more often in similar discussions. Though, perhaps I've been fortunate to have not seen it and not reminded of it. During a robbery at a hi-fi home audio store in Ogden, Utah on April 22, 1974, 5 victims were assaulted by at least 3 perpetrators who forced them to drink drain cleaner, causing significant burning on their mouths, tongues, and throats. If that wasn't horrible enough, one victim had a ballpoint pen forced into his ear, which was then stomped on by one of the perpetrators until the pen ruptured his eardrum and pierced his throat. Astonishingly, the victim survived, but 3 of the others were killed, all over some stereo equipment. I'm sure there are other crimes out there I'll remember that have horrifying and sickening details. Most do, but some stand out for being exceptionally visceral and nauseating. But this one popped into my head. You can look into the case further, because I left out some other graphic details, and if you're wondering, the 2 primary perpetrators were captured and later executed. Yeah, hi-fi is definitely up there. The brutality is just terrible. I've only read about it. I don't seek out images or things like that, but yeah, I mean, you described pretty much the most horrible things you could do to a person within reason. The murder of Mikun Deborah Chong. A Christian English woman called Gemma Mitchell decapitated Chong and stored her body in a suitcase, whose body was dumped on a woodland path. Effing monster. This happened in 2021. She was sentenced in October 2022. Partition 1947. So many women were arred and killed, and at night, the naked, bleeding, dead body would be hanged in front of the main door of the house that women belonged to. Many men and children were also killed, burnt alive along with their houses. All these were done so that they could evacuate the place. When the Kashmiri Pandits started evacuating, then also they weren't letting go in peace. Their hands were cut off, legs were cut off, and whatnot, so that other Indians will see how dangerous the Pakistanis are and fear them. The crimes of Peter Scully and his associates. Don't look them up. Imagine Ian Watkins, except several times worse and also a murderer. Even after learning about the shit they did, I still struggle to fathom how anyone could be capable of such pure, unrelenting evil. As a New Yorker, I get chills every time I see a story about some crazy-ass person just shoving a random person onto the subway tracks for no apparent reason. I've seen footage and security camera video, and the person is just standing there minding their own business, and some psycho just jumps up and shoves them onto the tracks for no reason at all. Kids too. And if not for the fast-acting, well-meaning strangers, these people would have been killed instantly. One video, the little girl was saved by a whisker. Gives me the creeps that there are psychos out there that do these sorts of things. The death of Peter Connolly, aka Baby P. He was a 17-month-old from London who was killed in 2007 by his mother's boyfriend after months of torture and child abuse. A post-mortem revealed he had swallowed a tooth after being punched and had numerous other injuries, including a broken neck, broken ribs, mutilated fingertips, and missing fingernails. And what makes it even worse is child welfare had removed him from the home a couple times before, but he was returned to his mother's care after both times. Issei Sagawa, the Kobe cannibal. One of the few murderers to go essentially scot-free and even earned him some form of celebrity. He murdered and then proceeded to consume and sexually violate the corpse of his friend and fellow student, Renee Hartefeld. I take solace in the fact that she died instantly and didn't see it coming. The fact he went free, lived out till his natural death at 73, and relished in his celebrity, detailing of his crime, fills me with such utter, unrelenting rage. Every time or every other time this topic comes up, someone's going to always mention this guy who ate a girl in college and then went back to his home country with the non-extradition and basically lived a celebrity life. Doesn't seem quite right, does it? Nanjing dismemberment case. A 19-year-old Chinese college student named Dao King was dismembered in 2,000 pieces, and all of the parts were boiled in water for days. The crime scene photos will keep you awake for days. Sylvia Marie Likens, January 3, 1949, October 26, 1965, was an American teenager who was tortured and murdered by her caregiver, Gertrude Baniszewski, many Baniszewski's children, and several of their neighborhood friends. This abuse incrementally lasted for 3 months before Likens died from her extensive injuries and malnourishment on October 26, 1965, in Indianapolis, Indiana. Likens was increasingly neglected, belittled, humiliated, beaten, starved, lacerated, burned, and dehydrated by her tormentors. Her autopsy showed 150 wounds across her body, including several burns, scald marks, and eroded skin. Through intimidation, her younger sister, Jenny, was occasionally forced to participate in her mistreatment. The official cause of her death was determined to be a homicide caused by a combination of subdural hematoma and shock, complicated by several severe malnutrition. Gertrude Baniszewski, her oldest daughter Paula, her son John, and 2 neighborhood youths, Coy Hubbard and Richard Hobbs, were all tried and convicted in May of '66 of neglecting, torturing, and murdering Likens. At the defendant's trial, Deputy Prosecutor Leroy New described the case as the most diabolical case to ever come before a court or jury, and Gertrude's defense attorney, William C. Urbecker, described Likens as having been subjected to acts of degradation that you wouldn't commit on a dog before her death. After 8 hours of deliberation, the jury found Gertrude Baniszewski guilty of first-degree murder. She was sentenced to life imprisonment but was released on parole in 1985. Paula was found guilty of second-degree murder and was released in 1972. Hobbs, Hubbard, and John were found guilty of manslaughter and served less than 2 years in the Indiana Reformatory before being granted parole on February 27, 1968. The torture and murder of Sylvia Likens is widely regarded by Indiana citizens as the worst crime ever committed in their state, and has been described by a senior investigator in the Indianapolis Police Department as the most sadistic case he had ever investigated in the 35 years he served with the Indianapolis police.